Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, June 30th. I'm Amitha Sharma. Thanks for joining us. New restrictions, more closures, and yet another spike in COVID-19 cases county-wide. San Diego County leaders today announcing a new single-day high in the number of people hospitalized for the coronavirus, 493 people with 182 in the ICU. There were also 317 new cases, down from yesterday, but the number of deaths ticked up by 4. Officials expressed concern about the rise in hospitalizations and warned people not to gather outside of immediate family groups during this 4th of July weekend.
The goal throughout this pandemic has been to protect the health of our region and our community, as well as preserve hospital capacity. The recent trends that we're seeing are putting that second item at risk. In the past week, we've seen hospitalizations go up from about 300 or so to well over 400 now, and there is no end in sight.
Beaches will remain open over the holiday weekend, even as neighboring counties have announced they will be closing theirs. Meanwhile, bars that only serve alcohol have to close at midnight. Bars that serve food and restaurants that serve alcohol cannot stay open later than 10 p.m. each night. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman found the order is creating some confusion.
They allowed us to open up without the food requirement, and actually sales have been very strong since then, but of course now we take a big giant step back.
Some brewery and winery owners are looking at this as a step backwards. They wish instead of officials placing restrictions on the entire industry that they just went after bad actors.
It'd be nice if everybody was treated, all the different businesses were treated case-by-case basis, but that's just impossible to do.
County health officials said yesterday all breweries, bars, and wineries that do not have a food license must close, and people can only order alcohol while eating a meal.
There was some confusion over what that decision was and how it will impact us.
Deft Brewing in Bay Park is partnering with Cucina Caprese to serve pizzas, but the brewery itself is not licensed to serve food, so do they have to close?
It hasn't been made clear. Do we have to serve the food ourselves, or can we partner up with the food trucks?
The San Diego Brewers Guild says members are also confused about new restrictions. Today, county health officials clarified that bars, breweries, and restaurants do not have to be licensed to serve food themselves. Therefore, they can continue to partner with eateries to stay open. But the Brewers Guild says it's not easy to bring in outside food on a consistent basis.
It's really hard to find a food truck for every brewery every day of the week that they want to be open.
Next door to Deft Brewing is a brand new Lost Cause meadery location that is also partnering with Cucina Caprese to serve food.
We as a winery operate very differently than some other bars in the county, or just bars in general, right? There's a big difference between a winery and a bar.
Owners Susanna and Billy Belts have been open for just a couple of weeks and are concerned that restrictions are confusing customers.
How that will impact business, I think it's anybody's guess. Not only with people that do or don't want to comply with the new rules, but also the confusion it creates in terms of what can I do, what's open, what's safe.
While the owners would like to see some targeted enforcement of businesses not following guidelines, they say if customers aren't following the rules, it doesn't make sense to close individual bars.
You can target the bad actors, but nothing will get solved until we all approach this together.
The California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control estimates there are hundreds of bars, breweries, and wineries here that could be impacted by the closure orders. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
San Diego City Council members today voted to extend the city's moratorium on evictions due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The moratorium applies to both residential tenants and businesses and is now set to expire on September 30th. Council member Chris Ward says while an eviction freeze isn't a permanent solution, it will help prevent people from falling into homelessness as the pandemic continues to wreak havoc on the economy.
It doesn't solve the whole system's issues, but it does be able to delay a growing crisis that's already a challenge for our community, for families that are at risk of homelessness. And that is fundamentally the importance of this issue.
The council also voted to allocate over $15 million to help low-income tenants pay rent. Those funds are expected to become available in August. Amidst a worsening situation with COVID-19 spreading in California, Governor Newsom today reaffirmed the state's commitment to caring for California's homeless. At the same time, he also hinted that tomorrow he will dial back the state's reopening. KPBS reporter John Carroll has more.
We have not taken our eye off the ball of focusing with intentionality on addressing the needs of the most vulnerable Californians.
Standing outside a Motel 6 in the Bay Area, where more than 100 homeless people are now housed, the governor said the state is putting its money where its mouth is when it comes to addressing the issue of homelessness. He signed a new budget on Monday, reminding his constituents that over the course of a few months, we've gone from having a $6 billion surplus to a nearly $54.5 billion deficit. But he says both he and the legislature are not backing down when it comes to putting homelessness in the rearview mirror.
It provided an additional $1.3 billion to cities and to counties to support programs like this.
The program, which started out a few months ago as Project Room Key, has been renamed to Project Home Key to reflect that this isn't a temporary fix. The state is actively buying up hotels and motels across the state to get homeless folks off the street for good.
Of a key, a lock, a place to call home and begin to support their recovery. So with that, we're happy to take any questions.
As the pool reporter, I feel I have to just say that these are Black Lives Matter protesters holding signs and asking for a redistribution of resources.
While Black Lives Matter protesters stood across the street using a siren and a bullhorn to make their point, Newsom stuck to his message. And as he does every time he holds a news conference, the governor gave a status report on the spread of COVID-19 in California. Things are not looking good. 6,367 people have tested positive over the last 24 hours, hospitalizations up by 6.3%, and ICU admissions up 4.3% over the same period. Numbers like that are undoubtedly why New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut today added California to the list of states where travelers heading to that tri-state area must quarantine for 14 days. And about a half hour into his news conference, the governor hinted that tomorrow he's going to put California's reopening process into reverse.
We are looking at issues of transmission and community spread throughout sectors in our economy, not least of which issues around concerns with activities coming up this weekend.
The governor says counties that don't comply with whatever he orders tomorrow will face the loss of state funding. John Carroll, KPBS News.
The San Diego VA has had its first hospital employee die from COVID-19. iNews Source reporter Jill Castellano tells us about the 62-year-old veteran.
John Paul Martinez, who died last Wednesday, was a medical technician at the San Diego VA who worked with ventilators and other equipment. Martinez was planning to retire later this year when he became sick, his son said. Martinez grew up in Pearland, Texas, with 13 siblings. He served in the Army and Navy before going to work for the VA. He had two sons, John Jr. and Josh, and a granddaughter, Layla. Federal data shows that there have been at least 175 patients in the San Diego VA healthcare system with known or likely cases of COVID-19. A total of 6 veterans, including Martinez, have died. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Jill Castellano.
The man shot by San Diego police officers in downtown San Diego has died. The police department says 25-year-old Leonardo Hurtado Ibarra was pronounced dead last night. The department also named the 2 officers who shot Ibarra Saturday. They are Jonathan Lucas and Tavar Zaki, both assigned to the Central Division and have been officers for 4 years. Both are on administrative leave, which is standard after an officer-involved shooting. George Floyd's in-custody death has renewed calls to stop adding people's names to California's gang database. iNews Source investigative reporter Cody Delaney has the story.
Police can put someone on the Cal Gang database without them ever having committed a crime. And once labeled a gang member, police can then use that label to justify stopping and questioning them. And the vast majority of those on the database are African American and Hispanic men. Now, activists statewide are demanding a freeze on adding people to the list. They say too often it criminalizes people of color. Here's how Los Angeles attorney Sean Garcia-Lays sees the problem.
This is exactly the kind of policing that the protests have been directed at. There are systemic problems with the way inner city communities are policed.
An iNewsSource analysis of records from San Diego County police agencies found affiliating with a gang member and frequenting a gang area are the most commonly cited reasons for adding someone to Cal Gang. Layla Aziz is with the Southeast San Diego nonprofit Pillars of the Community. She is very clear on what she and her organization are asking for.
The complete abolishment of Cal Gangs and of the Gang Suppression Unit, now called the Special Operations Units, to really look at youth violence. When we see something happening, we see a kid going in the wrong direction, let's make sure they have some place to go. Let's make sure we're investing in our kids' future, in the world, in college, in being the best they can be, instead of investing in prison cells for them.
The head of the San Diego Police Union, Jack Schaefer, says the database does need more scrutiny, but it remains an important law enforcement tool. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Cody Dulaney.
iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. National City is opening another free community COVID-19 testing site. Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis announced the National City T3 Health Community Hub created at Kimball's Senior Center. The efforts focus on the 3 T's: testing, tracing, and treatment. The mayor says as of June 28th, 618 cases have been identified in National City.
Even though we are less than 5% of the total cases, the rate of infection per 100,000 population is over 1,000%.
Residents can get a free test at any of these locations in the 91950 zip code. An appointment is required. Advocates are asking the state to end what they call the solitary confinement of residents at senior care facilities by allowing them at least one designated visitor. The ban on visitors that took effect at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic has taken a toll. Some people living in senior homes have grown despondent after going months without seeing family and friends. A few have stopped eating and getting out of bed. Dementia has worsened. Pat McGinnis, Executive Director of California Advocates for Nursing Home Reform, says the isolation has led to preventable deaths and emotional devastation.
Continuing to leave nursing home residents to get infected, to suffer, and to die alone is not a civilized option.
McGinnis is calling on the state to mandate that each resident in a senior care facility have at least one support person visitor who would undergo the same screening for COVID-19 as people who work at the facility. In emails to KPBS, state officials and representatives of senior care homes have said they are allowing visitors to facilities that meet certain standards for staffing, testing, and safety compliance. However, it is unclear who is ensuring that compliance, and advocates say visitors are still being turned away. La Mesa businesses are getting some help to get back in business after last month's looting and vandalism. More than $240,000 has been raised through fundraisers and GoFundMe pages. 27 businesses applied for the relief fund, and they were each given a check for $5,000. Some of the stores in the La Mesa Springs shopping center are already back open, but others, like Play It Again Sports, are still weeks away from reopening.
That we're closed is expensive for us, and so all we really want to do is just get open, and so we're trying to do that. We're working as hard as we can to try to get open as fast as we can.
Not everyone accepted the check. One restaurant owner gave it back and asked that the money be given to bars, breweries, and wineries that have been ordered to close. Today, the San Diego City Council formalized the sale of the Mission Valley Stadium site to San Diego State University. Mayor Kevin Faulkner and SDSU President Adela de la Torre released a joint statement saying the approval begins the revitalization of public land to better serve the community. Transfer of ownership is expected to take place in early August, and construction on the stadium and river park will begin shortly after. This week's unusual rainfall has made this one of the wettest Junes on record. Mark Mancuso has your forecast.
Well, we certainly had an interesting day yesterday weather-wise. We had record rain in the area for some, and we had record low maximum temperatures for some too, with temperatures well below average. But now we're kind of getting back to normalcy here, and temperatures will start to rise a bit, especially for the end of the week. And over the weekend, it will be warmest probably on Sunday. We'll have our daily dose of night and morning clouds, but they'll become a little more patchy as we head towards the weekend. So if you're thinking about a trip to the beach this weekend, it does look like it'll be warmer, and we'll see more in the way of sunshine. So for tonight, we'll see some clouds. Oceanside 62, San Diego 62, El Cajon at 62, Borrego Springs at 70, and Campo dips down to 47, rather refreshing. Looking at our Wednesday weather, well, no surprises here. Coolest at the coast and warm in the interior. And as we take a look at our temperatures, we'll see clouds giving way to some sun. Oceanside, San Diego, low to mid 70s. Ramona's in the low 80s. El Cajon's in the low 80s, low 70s. Mount Laguna and Borrego Springs at 101. As we check out the weekend, big holiday weekend here. Well, it looks like we'll be in a dry flow. Any threat for monsoonal moisture should stay well to our east, so we're looking good. So as you take a look at our temperatures next couple of days, we'll see clouds and sun, and then gradually warmer. Warmest day here is on Sunday, good beach day. Take a look ahead inland. Clouds will become less as we head through the week, and temperatures rising into low 90s by Sunday. Mountain areas looking beautiful. Temperatures warm to low 80s here on Sunday. And in the deserts, temperatures will be on the rise here with plenty of sunshine. Looks a little bit hot over the weekend. For KPBS News, I am meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
When it comes to our kids in school, the American Academy of Pediatrics says they need to be back in class this fall. The group says evidence shows the academic, mental, and physical benefits of in-person learning outweigh the risks from the coronavirus. Infectious disease expert Dr. Anthony Fauci says keeping schools closed in general isn't necessary.
There are things that can creatively be done about modifying things like the school schedule, alternate days, morning versus evening, allowing under certain circumstances online virtual lessons. Those are the kind of things that we need to consider, but also importantly, always make the goal that it is very important to get the children back to school.
The Academy of Pediatrics recommends elementary schools focus on hand washing and use outdoor spaces when possible, while middle and high schools require masks if a 6-foot distance cannot be maintained. Genetic sequencing or decoding someone's DNA may help hospitals care for babies with rare genetic diseases much faster and more effectively than traditional treatment. KPBS science and technology reporter Shalina Chetlani says it can also save hospitals money.
When newborn babies go to an intensive care unit, it's often difficult to determine what condition the baby has. That can lead to years of ineffective treatment and high hospital bills. So in 2018, 5 different California hospitals participated in a state-sponsored study to see whether rapid genetic sequencing tests could help. Doctors decoded the DNA of around 170 newborn babies with these critical but unknown illnesses. And the results are exciting, says Stephen Kingsmore, CEO of participating Rady Children's Institute for Genomic Medicine.
Almost a half of the babies we tested did indeed have a genetic disease. We were able to identify the cause of their illness. Second of all, 31%, so almost a third, making a diagnosis changed how the baby was managed in the intensive care unit.
And that change of care resulted in better outcomes for the babies, Kingsmore said. But the biggest question in the study was cost. Genetic sequencing is expensive, but the study also found the tool saved money, said Bryce Waldman, a market analyst at Rady Children's.
So a large majority of the savings, approximately 94%, were from reduced days reduced inpatient days. So because of sequencing and the rapid diagnosis, the baby quickly was able to leave the hospital and didn't have to stay in another week, 2 weeks, even month.
Waldman says the over $2 million in savings across the study is a modest estimate. Now Rady hopes to present the research to legislators to show genetic sequencing ought to be covered by insurance. Shalina Chatlani, KPBS News.
A report out today shows over 1/3 of essential workers in health and agriculture in the city of San Diego are immigrants. UC San Diego's U.S. Immigration Policy Center found that approximately 1 in 4 San Diegans is foreign-born. That's nearly twice the national average. The center also analyzed the economic impact of immigrants, finding that in 2018, they contributed more than $2 billion in federal taxes and $946 million in state and local taxes. Associate Professor Tom Wong says who's coming to the city is changing.
Over the last 5 years, the most significant growth in our foreign-born population, it's not coming from Latin America, but it's coming from Asia and more significantly from Africa and the Middle East. And so what we also see in the data is that by 2030, the plurality of immigrants here in San Diego will be from Asia.
More than 115 countries and territories make up the city of San Diego's diverse immigrant populations. Carl Reiner was a comedic genius who could do it all, a legend both front and center and behind the scenes. He died last night, but as Stephanie Elam shows us, Reiner leaves behind a legacy of laughter spanning generations.
Funny enough, Carl Reiner didn't always have his sights set on comedy. However, there was a small problem.
I was missing 2 things to be an opera singer: pitch and timing.
Reiner was born in 1922 to Jewish immigrants, a watchmaker and homemaker in New York.
I went to the movies in the Bronx when I was a kid, and I saw Ronald Koeman. I said, oh, it's so good. I'll never be there, but I want to be an actor. I could talk like him.
Growing up in the Great Depression, Reiner sought free acting classes offered by FDR's Works Progress Administration. After serving in World War II, he headed to Broadway, where he caught the attention of someone working in a new medium, television.
I'm forgetting one very important thing: lunch.
Show of Shows was my college with Sid Caesar and Imogen Coker, best writers in the history of this business. I really learned to write and learned about what constitutes good comedy.
After a decade of working with Sid Caesar, Reiner needed a new creative outlet. As he told Conan O'Brien, he didn't have to go far.
I was being offered situation comedies. I read a few of these, and they weren't very good. And my wife, in her infinite wisdom, said, why don't you write one?
Reiner created and starred in Head of the Family. It flopped at CBS, but Reiner's agent had an idea.
We'll get a better actor to play you.
Although the show got a new cast and a new title,
The Dick Van Dyke Show,
Reiner stayed to run the series, regularly appearing on it as well.
Whatever you were going to say to Laura, I would rather you said to me.
Okay, Rob, if that's the way you want it. Rob, you're a beautiful girl.
The 5 years I spent with Carl Reiner and Mary Tyler Moore on The Van Dyke Show were the 5 best years of my life. The most fun I ever had, the most creative, and I think I learned the most working with Carl Reiner that I ever did.
Learned what? Timing?
About comedy, about human behavior, about everything. Carl could have been a psychiatrist. He understands people so well.
The world is full of normal neurotics, and we like to see ourselves, and I think we saw ourselves in Dick.
While on set, Reiner developed a passion for directing. His movies Oh God with George Burns and The Jerk starring Steve Martin became instant comedy classics.
When Optograb came out, I thought it was the greatest thing ever, and I bought a pair. And this is the result.
In his later years, Reiner wrote several books, but he never strayed far from his acting roots. Whether it was on TV sitcoms like Mad About You.
We haven't met anywhere before.
No, I'm sure I'd remember.
Oh, yes, you would.
Or on film in the Ocean's 11 franchise.
You're all aces in my book, but I want the last check I write to bounce.
In his personal life, Reiner was married more than 60 years to jazz singer Estelle Reiner, who appeared in their son Rob's film When Harry Met Sally.
I'll have what she's having.
The Reiners had 3 children. Their eldest, Rob, became a successful actor turned director, just like his dad.
He is my idol and the person who has given me not only life, but a direction in life.
Do you pinch yourself a lot?
All the time. All the time. How did this happen? It's still a dream. It's still a dream.
Reiner died last night in his home in Beverly Hills. He was 98.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, nationwide spikes in COVID infections force states to reimpose social distancing measures. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
An update now on our top story. San Diego County leaders announced a new single-day high in the number of people hospitalized for the coronavirus. There were also 317 new cases, down from yesterday, but the number of deaths ticked up by 4. As of midnight, bars that don't serve food must close. Restaurants and bars that do serve food must close at 10 p.m. from now on. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us, and have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following: and by viewers like you. Thank you.